The moment the mistress's palm cracked across Evelyn Carter's face, while she lay in labor, strapped to a hospital bed, she knew this wasn't jealousy. This was a hit. The woman hadn't come to argue. She came to break her, humiliate her, make sure her child entered the world through fear. Her screams sliced through the bright room, monitors shrieking, a metal tray crashing across the floor. Pain tore through Evelyn's spine, and in that chaos one truth hit hardest: someone powerful wanted her erased. Then everything flipped. A nurse's phone caught the entire attack. The clip leaked within minutes. The internet ignited. And the hospital, panicked, corrupt, scrambling, refused to hand over their official CCTV footage. Technical malfunction, they claimed. A lie. A cover-up. A warning. Because the next person who stepped into that room wasn't a doctor. It was Evelyn's father. A billionaire. A military legend. A man whose anger doesn't rise, it detonates. They thought a pregnant woman was easy prey. They forgot whose daughter she was. They didn't slap a helpless wife. They declared war on a man built for war. Don't scroll. Don't disappear. Evelyn already had a husband who betrayed her, a mistress who attacked her, a hospital that hid the truth. Don't be another person who walks away when she finally speaks. Hit subscribe. Stay with her. She survived too much to lose you now. 12 hours earlier. Evelyn Carter sat in the passenger seat of her own car, hands folded over her swollen belly, watching her husband text someone he wouldn't name. Derek's thumbs moved fast, too fast for work, too secretive for anything innocent. He'd angled the phone away from her 3 times in the last 10 minutes, his jaw tight, that muscle near his temple twitching the way it did when he was lying. "Who is it?" she asked, voice soft, testing. "Work." He didn't look up. "On a Saturday?" "Yeah, Evelyn, work doesn't stop because you're 9 months pregnant." He shoved the phone into his pocket, started the engine. "You ready or not?" She wanted to say no, not ready for the hospital, not ready to bring a child into this cold, crumbling marriage, not ready to pretend everything was fine when her husband had stopped touching her 4 months ago, when his credit card statements showed florist charges she never received, when his cologne smelled different now, expensive, like someone else chose it. But the contraction hit, sharp and vicious, stealing her breath. She gripped the door handle, gasping. Derek glanced over, annoyed more than concerned. "You good? Just drive." He did, but his phone buzzed twice more before they reached the highway, and both times he checked it at red lights, his mouth curving into something that wasn't quite a smile but wasn't neutral either. Evelyn turned toward the window, blinking back heat behind her eyes. "You're imagining it," she told herself, the same lie she'd been repeating for months. He's stressed. "You're emotional. Pregnancy makes you paranoid." But paranoia doesn't send flowers to someone else. Paranoia doesn't make a man flinch when his wife reaches for his hand. The hospital rose ahead. Bright Hills Medical, all glass and steel and charitable PR, the kind of place where rich people went to have beautiful, controlled births in private suites with mood lighting and on-demand epidurals. Her father had insisted on it. Best care in the state, Vincent Carter had said over the phone 2 weeks ago, his voice that low, unshakable rumble that made generals sit straighter. "I've already handled it. Private room, top OB team, security clearance. You won't be bothered." Evelyn hadn't argued. You didn't argue with Vincent Carter, not because he was cruel, but because he was always 3 steps ahead, always right, always watching. Even from 8,000 miles away, deployed on some classified op she wasn't cleared to know about, he was still her father. Still the man who'd raised her alone after her mother died, still the man who built an empire on discipline and precision, still the only person she trusted completely. Well, used to trust completely. Lately, even that felt complicated. Derek pulled into the circular drive, put the car in park but didn't turn it off. "I'll drop you here, find parking, meet you upstairs." "You're not coming in with me?" "Evelyn, it's a hospital. There's, like, 40 floors. I'll be 5 minutes." Another contraction, harder this time, bent her forward. She breathed through it, hand pressed to the dashboard, and when it passed she looked at him, really looked, at the man she'd married 3 years ago, the man who'd promised her forever in front of 200 people, the man whose baby she was about to deliver. His eyes were on his phone again. "Derek." He glanced up, impatient. What? Are you happy? The question came out small, fragile. About the baby. About us. Are you happy? For a moment, something flickered across his face, guilt, maybe, or regret, but it vanished fast, replaced by that practiced, empty smile he used on clients. Of course I am. He leaned over, kissed her forehead without warmth. Go. I'll be right behind you. She got out, slowly, one hand on her belly, the other braced against the car door. A valet appeared, offered his arm. She waved him off, needing to do this herself, needing to prove she wasn't as fragile as she felt. Behind her, Derek's car pulled away. He didn't wait. He didn't watch her walk inside. He just left. Evelyn stood there, the hospital's automatic doors whispering open, a rush of sterile air washing over her, and for the first time in 9 months she let herself think the thing she'd been avoiding. I'm going to do this alone. Vincent Carter stood in a reinforced bunker beneath the Jordanian desert, surrounded by monitors displaying satellite feeds, troop movements, and encrypted communications channels, but his eyes were on his phone. A single message from his assistant, Claire. Evelyn checked into Bright Hills. Delivery imminent. Derek late. Monitored activity flagged, unusual financial transactions linked to his accounts. Recommend surveillance escalation. Vincent's jaw tightened. He'd been watching Derek for 6 weeks now, ever since his private security team flagged a pattern. Withdrawals, transfers, burner phone purchases, meetings with individuals whose backgrounds didn't match a software sales exec's usual contacts. One of those individuals was a woman named Vanessa Cole, former escort, current consultant, and frequent recipient of Derek's cash. Another was Gregory Hunt, a rival defense contractor who'd been trying to sabotage Vincent's DoD contracts for 2 years. And then there was Diane, Evelyn's stepmother, Vincent's late wife's younger sister, a woman who'd contested the will, lost, and spent a decade nursing resentment like a second career. Separately, they were irritants. Together, they were a conspiracy. Vincent had suspected for months that someone was positioning against him, using Evelyn as leverage, but he'd assumed they'd wait until after the birth, wait until she was vulnerable but not that vulnerable. He'd been wrong. The kind of wrong that got people killed. Sir. One of his aides approached, tablet in hand. Cairo confirms the asset extraction is greenlit. We're wheels up in 30. Change of plans. Vincent's voice was calm, flat, the tone that made colonels nervous. Prep the jet for immediate departure. Route to Newark. Full security detail. Sir, the mission is over. Vincent looked up, and his eyes were the kind of cold that didn't need volume. My daughter's in labor, and I just got word someone's moving on her. I'm not asking. The aide nodded, fast. Yes, sir. Vincent turned back to his phone, opened an encrypted app, and typed a single message to his head of security. Activate Protocol Sentinel. Target, everyone in Evelyn's immediate circle. I want financials, communications, locations, associations, everything. And get someone inside Bright Hills. Now. The reply came in seconds. Already done. Nurse on payroll positioned in L&D. Will report directly. Vincent allowed himself the smallest exhale. His daughter thought she was alone. She wasn't. She never had been. But someone was about to learn what happened when you mistook his restraint for weakness, his distance for neglect, his silence for ignorance. Vincent Carter had built his fortune on calculated violence. And someone just made it personal. Dr. Raymond Moss sat in his corner office, staring at the wire transfer confirmation on his screen. $250,000 deposited. Memo, consultation fee. There was no consultation. There was only the phone call he'd received 3 days ago from a man who didn't give his name but had Gregory Hunt's lawyer on speed dial, explaining, politely, coldly, that a situation might arise in labor and delivery involving a patient named Evelyn Carter, and that the hospital's security footage might experience a technical malfunction during a specific window. You'll be compensated for your discretion, the voice had said. And if I refuse? Then we'll revisit your malpractice settlement from 2019. The one you buried. The one involving the stillbirth you didn't report. Raymond had gone quiet. The man continued, "We're not asking you to hurt anyone, doctor. Just look the other way. For 60 seconds. That's worth $250,000, isn't it?" It was. God help him, it was. Now, sitting in his office with his door locked and his hands shaking, Raymond stared at that number and wondered what kind of man he'd become. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. "She's checked in," the voice said. "Room 412. Make sure your security team is positioned on the 3rd floor for the next hour. Not the 4th. What's going to happen? Nothing you need to know about. Just do your job, doctor, which, for the next 60 seconds, is to do nothing at all." The line went dead. Raymond closed his eyes, thought about his daughter's college tuition, his wife's medical bills, the mortgage on the house he couldn't afford, the life he'd built on compromises and silence. It's just 60 seconds, he told himself. No one will even know. But deep down, beneath the rationalizations and the fear, he knew the truth. He'd just sold his soul. And someone was about to pay the price. Evelyn lay in the hospital bed, monitors beeping steadily, and 4 drip in her arm, her body exhausted and wired all at once. The contractions were coming faster now, every 6 minutes, then 5, the pain sharp and relentless, stealing her breath and her thoughts and any illusion of control. A nurse, young, kind-faced, name-tag reading Sophia, checked her vitals, adjusted the fetal monitor, offered a smile that felt genuine. "You're doing great," Sophia said softly. "Baby's heartbeat is strong. You're almost there." "Where's my husband?" Evelyn's voice cracked. "He said he'd be right up." Sophia hesitated, glanced at the door. "I'm sure he's on his way. Traffic, parking, it happens." But her eyes said something else. Evelyn turned her head toward the window, blinking hard. "Don't cry. Don't cry. Not here. Not now." Her phone buzzed. A text from Derek. "Running late. Start without me. You'll be fine." Start without him. Like this was a meeting. Like their child's birth was an inconvenience. She typed back, hands trembling. "I need you here." 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. No response. Evelyn set the phone down, chest tight, and that's when she heard it, heels on tile, fast and sharp, coming down the hallway. Sophia heard it too, her head turned, brow furrowing. The door swung open. And Vanessa Cole walked in like she owned the room. Tall, polished, blonde hair swept into a ponytail, designer purse on one arm, fury in her eyes. Evelyn's breath caught. Who are you?" Vanessa smiled, cold and beautiful. "I'm the woman your husband actually loves." And that's when Evelyn knew. This wasn't a mistake. This was the plan. What would you do if the person who destroyed your family walked into your most vulnerable moment? Would you fight, or would you freeze? Drop your answer below. Let's talk about it. Vanessa smiled, cold and beautiful. "I'm the woman your husband actually loves." Evelyn's world tilted, not from the contraction building in her spine, but from the way this stranger said it, like a fact, like a victory, like Evelyn's entire life was the punchline to a joke she'd never heard coming. "Get out." Her voice barely worked. You can't be in here." "Can't I?" Vanessa stepped closer, heels clicking against tile, and Sophia moved between them instinctively, hands raised. "You need to leave. This is a private." "Private?" Vanessa laughed, sharp and bitter. "Nothing about her is private. She parades around playing the perfect wife while Derek suffocates, playing daddy to a kid he never wanted." "Stop." Evelyn's hands gripped the bed rails, knuckles white. "Just stop." But Vanessa didn't stop. She leaned in, voice dropping to something cruel and intimate. "He told me everything, Evelyn, how you trapped him, how you got pregnant on purpose, how he can't stand the sight of you anymore. He paid me to come here, do you understand? He wanted me to tell you." The words landed like bullets. Evelyn's breath hitched, vision blurring, and somewhere in the back of her mind a monitor started beeping faster, her heart rate spiking, the baby's distress alarm triggering, but all she could hear was that sentence on repeat. "He paid me to come here. You're lying. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. It explained everything. The distance, the coldness, the way Derek had looked at her in the car like she was an obligation, a burden, a mistake. Vanessa tilted her head, almost pitying. Am I? And then she raised her hand. Sophia lunged forward. Don't you dare. But Vanessa was faster. Her palm cracked across Evelyn's face, the sound brutal and final, echoing in the bright sterile room. Evelyn's head snapped to the side, pain exploding across her cheek, and she screamed, not from the slap, but from the contraction that tore through her at the exact same moment, her body convulsing, the baby dropping, monitors shrieking. A metal tray crashed to the floor, instruments scattering. Sophia's phone was already out, hands shaking, camera recording, capturing everything. Vanessa's face twisted in rage, Evelyn's tears, the chaos, the cruelty. You don't deserve him. Vanessa shouted, raising her hand again. You don't deserve any of this. The door burst open. A doctor, two nurses rushing in, voices overlapping. What the hell is going on? Get her out. Patients in active distress. Baby's heart rate dropping. Hands pulled Vanessa back. She fought them, screaming. She needed to know. She needed to. Security finally arrived, dragging her toward the door, her voice fading into the hallway, leaving only the alarms, the rushing footsteps, Evelyn's broken sobs. Sophia stood frozen, phone still recording, tears streaming down her face. She looked at Evelyn, this woman she just met, this woman curled in agony, betrayed and brutalized in the one place she should have been safe, and something inside Sophia cracked. She stepped into the hallway, hands trembling, opened her social media, and uploaded the video with 4 words. This is what abuse looks like. She hit post. And within 60 seconds, the world caught fire. The hospital's PR line started ringing. News vans began circling the block. Derek's phone exploded with notifications. And 8,000 miles away, on a military jet screaming toward American airspace, Vincent Carter watched the video on his tablet, his face expressionless, his hands perfectly still. Then he made a single phone call. It's time, he said quietly. Burn it all down. But the fire had already started without him. Sophia's video hit 2 million views in 17 minutes, every share a spark, every comment gasoline, the internet doing what it does best, turning private horror into public reckoning. The hashtags wrote themselves, #Justice for Evelyn, #Bright Hill Scandal, #Pregnant and Attacked. News outlets picked it up within the hour, local stations first, then national, then international, the clip playing on loop with that sickening crack of contact, Evelyn's scream, the monitors shrieking, Vanessa's twisted face frozen mid-rage. People weren't just angry, they were feral. And in his corner office, Dr. Raymond Moss watched his career implode in real time. His assistant burst through the door, no knock, face pale. Doctor, we have a situation, legal's on line 2, PR's having a breakdown, and there are reporters in the lobby demanding a statement. Raymond's hands shook as he reached for his phone. 43 missed calls, hundreds of emails, his personal cell blowing up with messages from colleagues, friends, his wife asking what the hell is going on. He opened Twitter. His name was trending. Not the hospital's name, his face pulled from the hospital website, people connecting dots he'd thought were buried, asking why security didn't stop the attack, why no one intervened faster, why the woman got into a restricted floor at all. Sir! His assistant's voice cracked. What do we do? Raymond's mind raced, panic tightening his throat, and then his phone buzzed, private number, the same one from before. He answered, voice barely steady. This wasn't supposed to go viral. Plans change. The voice was calm, unbothered. You know what to do. I don't. The CCTV footage from the 4th floor. Delete it. All of it. Blame a server malfunction, a glitch, whatever sounds plausible. Do it now, before the police subpoena it. That's obstruction. That's survival, doctor. You took the money. You made a choice. Now finish it, or I promise you, that malpractice case will be the least of your problems. The line went dead. Raymond sat there, staring at his reflection in the dark screen, and for a moment he saw himself clearly, Not a healer, not a professional, just a man who'd sold his integrity for tuition payments and silence. He opened his laptop, accessed the security server, found the footage from 3:47 p.m., Vanessa entering the floor, bypassing the nurse's station, security nowhere in sight, the whole conspiracy captured in grainy digital proof. His finger hovered over the delete key. One click, he thought. One click and it's gone. He pressed it. The files corrupted, error messages cascading across the screen, and Raymond Moss became complicit in something far worse than negligence. He became part of the cover-up. Across town, Derek sat in his car outside a strip mall, phone exploding, Vanessa's number blocked, his bank account suddenly frozen, account under review, contact your branch, and his hands were shaking so hard he could barely hold the wheel. The video was everywhere. His face wasn't in it, but his name was, people doxing him in the comments, finding his LinkedIn, his company profile, posting screenshots of texts he thought were deleted, messages to Vanessa about handling Evelyn, about making sure she understands, about the money. How did they get those? His phone rang, unknown number. He answered. Hello. Derek. The voice was smooth, familiar. Gregory Hunt. I assume you've seen the news. This wasn't, I didn't think she'd. I don't care what you thought. I care about containment. The hospital's handling the footage, but you need to sell the story. Shocked husband, devastated, had no idea Vanessa would do this, you're standing by your wife. Can you do that? Derek swallowed hard. People are connecting me to the payments. Then deny it. Blame a hack, identity theft, whatever. But if you fold, if you confess, you'll drag me down with you, and Derek. Gregory's voice turned cold. I don't go down. Ever. Do you understand? Yeah. Yes. Good. Now get to that hospital, play the loving husband, and for God's sake, cry. The line clicked off. Derek sat there, nauseous, trapped, realizing too late that he wasn't a player in this game. He was a pawn, expendable, surrounded by people who'd sacrifice him the moment he stopped being useful. He started the car. Headed toward Bright Hills. Toward Evelyn. Toward the reckoning he couldn't escape. And waiting in the shadows, watching every move, was a man who'd built an empire on knowing when to strike. Vincent Carter's jet touched down at Newark Liberty at 11:43 p.m. By midnight, he was in motion. By morning, the entire conspiracy would wish they'd never heard his daughter's name. By midnight, Vincent was in motion. By morning, the entire conspiracy would wish they'd never heard his daughter's name. He arrived at Bright Hills Medical Center at 6:47 a.m. No sirens, no announcement, just a black SUV pulling into the emergency bay followed by 3 identical vehicles, all tinted windows and silent engines. The lobby security guard looked up from his phone, saw the formation, and his hand instinctively moved toward his radio before he caught himself. Something about the way those men moved, the way they positioned themselves at exits and stairwells, told him this wasn't a threat. This was something worse. This was consequence. Vincent stepped through the automatic doors in a charcoal suit, no tie, his silver hair cut military short, his face carved from stone and patience. He didn't rush. Men like him never rushed because the world waited for them, not the other way around. 2 men flanked him, ex-Delta, silent, lethal, and a woman in a sharp blazer carried a leather briefcase that looked expensive enough to contain someone's future. The receptionist's smile died mid-breath. Can I help you? Vincent Carter. I'm here for my daughter, Evelyn Carter, room 412. His voice was calm, quiet, the kind of quiet that made you lean in and realize too late you were already listening. And I'd like to speak with your hospital administrator. Now. Sir, visiting hours don't start until. I'm not visiting. He placed a business card on the counter, simple, elegant, just a name and a number. I'm collecting. You have 60 seconds to get Dr. Raymond Moss down here, or I start making calls that end careers before breakfast. The receptionist's hand trembled as she reached for the phone. Vincent didn't wait for confirmation, he moved toward the elevators, his team flowing around him like water, and when a nurse tried to intercept him on the 4th floor, "Sir, you can't just." "I can." He didn't slow down. "And I am." She stepped aside. Room 412's door was closed, a uniformed officer stationed outside, hospital security, not police, which meant someone had requested protection but not official intervention. Interesting. The guard stood straighter as Vincent approached. Sir, I need to see. Vincent's lawyer handed him a document. Legal custody, medical power of attorney, and federal clearance. He goes in. You stay out here. The guard scanned it, paled slightly, nodded. Vincent pushed the door open. The room was dim, early morning light filtering through blinds, and there, curled on her side, face bruised, for line trailing from her arm, baby monitor beeping softly beside the bed, was Evelyn. She stirred at the sound, eyes fluttering open, confused and exhausted and still half caught in whatever nightmare she'd been dreaming. Then she saw him. Dad! Her voice broke on the word, disbelief and relief and shame all tangled together. You're supposed to be overseas. I know. He crossed the room in 3 strides, sat on the edge of her bed, and took her hand, gentle, careful, his touch so at odds with the controlled violence he'd built his life on. Plans changed. Evelyn's face crumpled, tears spilling fast. They all knew, Dad, Derek, the hospital, someone paid them to let her in, to hurt me, too. I know. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, once. I've known for weeks. I just didn't think they'd move this fast, this recklessly. His jaw tightened, the only visible crack in his composure. That's on me. No. It is. But it ends now. He looked at her, really looked, the way he hadn't since she was small, since before the deployments and the empire and the distance that came with both. I need you to tell me everything. Every name, every conversation, every moment you thought you were imagining things. Can you do that? Evelyn nodded, wiping her face with shaking hands. And for the next 40 minutes, she talked. She told him about Derek's coldness, the mysterious charges, the perfume, the florist receipts, the way her stepmother Diane had been pushing her to give Derek space, the strange phone calls where Diane would ask pointed questions about Vincent's schedule, his contracts, his vulnerabilities. She told him about the hospital administrator who'd been oddly insistent about her specific room assignment, about how security had been redirected just before Vanessa arrived, about the way the nurses seemed surprised someone had gotten past them so easily. Vincent listened without interrupting, his expression neutral, but his team was already moving, one of his operatives typing rapidly on a tablet, pulling financials, communications logs, security footage requests. When Evelyn finished, exhausted and hollow, Vincent stood. Derek's on his way here. He'll arrive in approximately 12 minutes, and he'll try to play the devastated husband. Vincent's voice was clinical now, strategic. Let him. I want to see how he performs under pressure. I don't want to see him. Evelyn's voice was small. I can't. You won't have to do anything except watch. I'll handle the rest. He leaned down, kissed her forehead. You're safe now. I promise. A knock at the door, one of his men, holding a phone. Sir. Assets are frozen. Derek Carter, Vanessa Cole, Gregory Hunt, and Diane Carter, all accounts locked pending federal review. Hunt's trying to leave the country, TSA's been notified. And the hospital just issued a statement claiming CCTV malfunction. Vincent's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Perfect. He looked back at Evelyn. They're scrambling. That means they're scared. And scared people make mistakes. Another knock, harder this time. The door opened. And Derek walked in, phone in hand, eyes red, shirt wrinkled, the performance already starting before he'd even seen her. Evelyn, oh my God, I just saw the news, I can't believe. He stopped mid-sentence. Because standing between him and his wife was a man whose net worth could bury him, whose military record included classified kills, whose reputation made billionaires nervous. Vincent Carter didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stared. And Derek, for the first time in his selfish, cowardly life, understood what it meant to be prey. And Derek, for the first time in his selfish, cowardly life, understood what it meant to be prey. Mr. Carter. Derek's voice cracked, hands rising slightly like he could ward off what was coming. I didn't know she would. Stop. Vincent's tone was surgical. You're going to stand there, you're going to listen, and if you interrupt me again, I'll have you removed in handcuffs. Nod if you understand. Derek nodded, sweat beading at his temples. Vincent gestured to his lawyer, who opened the briefcase and pulled out a tablet, screen glowing with documents, images, transaction records, a digital autopsy of Derek's last 6 months. Let me tell you a story, Vincent said, voice calm, almost conversational. 3 months ago, you met with Gregory Hunt at the Pinnacle Club in Manhattan. You sat in a private booth, drank whiskey you couldn't afford, and listened while he explained how much he'd pay you to distract my daughter, to keep her isolated, vulnerable, focused on a failing marriage instead of noticing the unusual activity around her life. Derek's face went white. That's not. Vincent ignored him, tapping the screen. He offered you $500,000. You countered with $750,000. He agreed, wired you an advance of $200,000 3 days later, payment traced to an offshore LLC registered under your mother's maiden name. Clever. Not clever enough. The lawyer swiped to another document. Bank statements, highlighted transactions, wire transfers color-coded like evidence exhibits. You used $50,000 of that to pay off gambling debts at an underground poker ring in Hoboken. Another $30,000 went to Vanessa Cole, initially for companionship, later for something else entirely. Vincent's eyes were cold, clinical. You paid her $20,000 to come to this hospital and psychologically break my daughter during labor. Not physically harm, psychologically destroy. That was the deal. Evelyn made a small, wounded sound. Vincent's hand found hers, squeezed once. Derek stammered, she wasn't supposed to hit her, I swear, I just wanted Evelyn to know about us, to realize we were over, I didn't. You didn't think. Vincent's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. Because thinking would have required you to consider consequences, and men like you don't think past the next transaction. He swiped again, screenshots of text messages, time-stamped, brutal in their clarity. Derek to Vanessa, 2:47 p.m., she's in room 412. Security's cleared. Make it count. Vanessa to Derek, 3:51 p.m., done. You owe me the rest. Derek to Vanessa, 3:53 p.m., once the video goes viral and her dad's distracted, you'll get it all. Evelyn's breath hitched, reading her husband's words, cold, transactional, proof that her pain had been currency. Vincent continued, relentless. But you weren't working alone. Gregory Hunt wanted me distracted because I'm scheduled to testify before Congress next month about his company's fraudulent defense contracts, testimony that would cost him billions and likely a federal indictment. Destroying you, breaking Evelyn, creating a scandal around my family, that was his leverage. Another swipe, emails between Gregory and someone named D. Carter. Diane. Evelyn's stepmother. Vincent's voice hardened. Diane connected you to Gregory, fed him details about Evelyn's pregnancy, her hospital arrangements, her vulnerabilities. She's been feeding him intelligence for 18 months, ever since I blocked her third attempt to contest your mother's will. Evelyn closed her eyes, the betrayal compounding. Not just Derek, not just a stranger, but family. And the hospital? Vincent turned to his operative. Show them. The screen filled with wire transfers, $250,000 to Dr. Raymond Moss, $50,000 to the head of security, smaller payments to 3 nurses and 2 administrators, all dated within 72 hours of Evelyn's scheduled delivery. They were paid to look away, Vincent said quietly. To disable cameras, redirect security, ensure Vanessa had access. A coordinated hit, funded by a rival, enabled by family, executed by a coward. He looked at Derek, and for the first time, something like emotion cracked through, not rage, but disgust. You sold your wife an unborn child for $750,000 and a chance to escape a marriage you were too weak to end honestly. Derek's knees buckled slightly, he caught himself on the doorframe. I'm sorry, God, Evelyn, I'm so sorry. You're not sorry. Evelyn's voice cut through, stronger than it had been in months, maybe years. You're caught. There's a difference. Vincent's phone buzzed, he glanced at it, nodded once. Federal agents just picked up Vanessa at her apartment. Gregory Hunt was detained at JFK trying to board a flight to Dubai. Diane's being served with subpoenas as we speak. And Dr. Moss? He smiled, cold and final. He just resigned, effective immediately, pending criminal investigation. Derek swayed, realization sinking in. There was no escape, no deal, no way out. Vincent stepped closer, voice dropping to something almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. You thought my daughter was alone. That's your first mistake. You thought I wouldn't notice. That's your second. And you thought, foolishly, desperately, that I'd let this go. He paused, letting the silence stretch. That's the one that's going to cost you everything. That's the one that's going to cost you everything. Derek opened his mouth, maybe to beg, maybe to explain, but Vincent's operative stepped forward, hand on Derek's elbow, firm but not brutal. Mr. Carter, federal agents are waiting downstairs to take your statement. You'll want to come quietly. Derek looked at Evelyn one last time, his eyes wet, pathetic, searching for something he'd never deserved and wouldn't find. She turned her head away. He was escorted out, the door closing with a soft click, and suddenly the room was quiet, just monitors beeping, early morning light growing warmer through the blinds, and the weight of everything that had just shattered. Evelyn exhaled, slow and shaking, her hands still gripping the bedsheets. Vincent stood there, silent, letting her process, letting her breathe. Then she whispered, I thought I was going crazy. You weren't. I thought, her voice cracked. I thought it was my fault, that I wasn't enough, that I'd pushed him away somehow, that the baby was a mistake. Evelyn. Vincent sat beside her, careful not to jostle the four-line, and his voice was softer than she'd heard in years. None of this was your fault. Not 1 second of it. She looked at him, tears streaming now, all the months of gaslighting and isolation and fear finally breaking open. But I should have seen it, I should have known. How? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. They were professionals, sweetheart. Trained liars. People I've dealt with in war zones, boardrooms, intelligence briefings. They do this for a living. You're not supposed to see it. That's the point. But you did. Because I've been watching for it my entire career. Because I know what betrayal looks like before it lands. He paused, jaw tight. And because I should have been here more. Should have paid attention instead of assuming distance kept you safe. Evelyn reached for his hand, squeezed it. You were building something. I was hiding. The admission came quiet, raw. After your mother died, I didn't know how to be a father without her. So I became a soldier, a CEO, anything that didn't require me to feel too much. I told myself you were strong, independent, that you didn't need me hovering. He met her eyes. I was wrong. And I'm sorry. She hadn't heard him apologize in, God, she couldn't remember when. Dad. Let me finish. He brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb, the gesture so tender it broke something in her chest. I failed you. Not just this week, but for years. I let you marry a man I didn't vet properly because I thought love was enough. I stayed overseas when you needed me close. I built walls because I was afraid of losing you the way I lost her. His voice roughened. But I see you now, Evelyn. And I'm not going anywhere. A sound from the corner, a soft cry, delicate and new. The baby. Evelyn's breath caught. She'd almost forgotten in the chaos, the fear, the revelations. A nurse appeared, Sophia, the one who'd recorded everything, her eyes still red but her smile genuine. Someone wants to meet her grandpa. She placed the tiny bundle in Vincent's arms, and for a moment this man, this billionaire, this general, this force of controlled destruction, went completely still. The baby was impossibly small, wrapped in soft pink, her face scrunched and perfect, tiny fingers curled against the blanket. Vincent stared at her, something unguarded crossing his face, wonder, maybe, or terror, or the kind of love that doesn't have words. His voice failed. He tried again. She's beautiful. Evelyn smiled through tears. Her name's Lily. Lily Grace Carter. After your mother. After the strongest woman I know. She reached out, touched Lily's hand. Well, one of them. Vincent's eyes glistened, just for a second, before he blinked it away, but Evelyn saw it, that crack in the armor, proof that beneath the strategy and the power was just a man who loved his family and hadn't known how to show it. He leaned down, whispered to Lily, "Your memoir went through hell to bring you here. But you're safe now. I promise." Lily yawned, a tiny sound, and something in the room shifted, lighter, warmer, like the world had been holding its breath and finally exhaled. For the first time in months, Evelyn felt something close to peace. Not because the war was over, it was just beginning. But because she wasn't fighting it alone anymore. Vincent handed Lily back to her, gently, reverently, then kissed Evelyn's forehead. "Rest. I've got the next part." "What's the next part?" His expression hardened, the general returning. "Making sure everyone who did this pays in full. When the people who hurt you finally face consequences, is it justice, or just the beginning of healing? Drop your thoughts below. We're not done yet." His expression hardened, the general returning. "Making sure everyone who did this pays in full." And he meant it. Within 72 hours, the world watched a conspiracy implode in real time, not quietly, not behind closed doors, but broadcast across every platform, every news cycle, every trending hashtag. Vincent didn't just destroy them, he made it public, educational, a case study in what happens when you underestimate the wrong man's daughter. Derek was arrested first. Perp walked out of his apartment at 6 a.m. with news cameras already positioned, anonymously tipped, of course. The charges scrolled across Chiron's like a grocery list. Conspiracy to commit assault, wire fraud, racketeering, obstruction of justice. His company fired him via press release before he'd even been processed, his LinkedIn profile deleted, his professional reputation incinerated within hours. But Vincent wasn't finished. He leaked the text messages, not to tabloids, but to investigative journalists at major outlets, the kind who wrote think pieces and won Pulitzers. Derek's own words became evidence exhibits, his make it count text message printed in newspapers, analyzed on morning shows, dissected by legal experts who called it premeditated emotional terrorism. The public didn't just hate him, they studied him, made him a symbol of male entitlement and cowardice. Vanessa's crying apology video, posted from jail, mascara-streaked and desperate, went viral for all the wrong reasons. People mocked her, remixed it, turned her tears into memes. She'd wanted attention, she got it, just not the kind that came with sympathy. Her charges included assault, conspiracy, and extortion, and her public defender could barely get her a plea deal because no prosecutor wanted to look soft on someone who'd attacked a pregnant woman on camera. 8 years, minimum. The internet celebrated. Dr. Raymond Moss didn't just lose his job, he lost everything. His medical license, revoked. His pension, frozen pending investigation. His name, associated forever with corruption and cowardice. The hospital settled Evelyn's lawsuit for $50 million within a week, terrified of discovery, terrified of what else Vincent's team might uncover. 3 other executives were fired, 2 faced criminal charges, and Bright Hills Medical became a cautionary tale in every healthcare ethics course in the country. Gregory Hunt's fall was the most spectacular. Vincent didn't just expose the bribery, he handed federal prosecutors a gift-wrapped case on defense contract fraud, insider trading, and conspiracy spanning 5 years. Hunt's companies lost government contracts worth billions, his board ousted him in an emergency session, and his assets were frozen pending trial. The man who tried to destroy Vincent through his daughter ended up in federal custody, his empire dissolved, his legacy reduced to a Wikipedia page about corporate crime. And Diane, bitter, manipulative Diane, faced the quietest but most devastating consequence. Vincent didn't press criminal charges, he did something worse. He cut her off completely. No access to family money, no invitations to family events, no acknowledgement of her existence. He had her removed from every trust, every will, every document that connected her to the Carter name. Then he released a single statement to the press, clinical and final: Diane Carter is no longer affiliated with this family in any capacity. She has been removed from all family assets and legal protections. We have no further comment. Social exile, financial ruin, and the kind of public shame that doesn't fade. She called Evelyn's phone 63 times in 2 days. Evelyn blocked her on the 64th. But the internet wasn't satisfied. They wanted more, wanted Vincent's statement, wanted the man himself to speak. He'd been silent since the initial hospital confrontation, letting the evidence speak, letting the system grind forward. Until the press conference. Vincent stood behind a podium at his corporate headquarters, no notes, no teleprompter, flanked by lawyers and silence. Cameras clicked like insects, reporters jostling for position, the room crackling with anticipation. He looked directly into the cameras, his voice calm, measured, and absolutely lethal. 3 weeks ago, multiple individuals conspired to attack my daughter while she was in labor, believing she was isolated, vulnerable, and without protection. He paused, letting it land. They were wrong on all counts. Another pause. He was a master of timing. Justice is not revenge. Justice is accountability. And every person involved in this conspiracy has been held accountable, legally, financially, and publicly. My daughter is safe. Her child is safe. And anyone who considers targeting my family in the future should study this case carefully. He leaned forward slightly, and his next words were quieter but somehow louder. I will always find you. I will always outspend you. I will always outlast you. And I will always win. He stepped back from the podium. Didn't take questions. Didn't need to. The MIC was still live when someone asked, "What happens now?" His lawyer answered, voice neutral, total accountability. Vincent walked out, and the internet exploded, again. Evelyn watched the press conference from her new home, Lily asleep in her arms, and for the first time since the attack, she smiled. Not because people were suffering, but because the world finally knew she was never alone. She was a Carter. And Carters don't break. And Carters don't break. But 3 weeks later, sitting in her father's study with Lily sleeping in a bassinet beside her, Evelyn faced a choice she hadn't expected. Vincent slid a folder across his mahogany desk, his expression unreadable. Derek's attorney sent this. Plea offer. He'll plead guilty to conspiracy and fraud, testify against Gregory Hunt, give up everything he knows, if we agree to drop the assault-related charges and recommend a reduced sentence. Evelyn stared at the folder, didn't open it. How reduced? 4 years instead of 12. The number hung in the air between them. 4 years. Less than the time she'd been married to him, less than the childhood Lily would spend without knowing her father existed, less than felt even remotely sufficient for what he'd done. And Vanessa? Her voice was steady, controlled. She sent something too? Vincent nodded, produced another folder. Public defenders offering a deal. She gives up everyone who paid her, cooperates fully, writes a public apology to you specifically. In exchange, 5 years instead of 8. Evelyn looked at Lily, tiny, perfect, oblivious to the fact that the two people who should have protected her had instead tried to destroy everything before she'd even taken her first breath. They want mercy, she said quietly. They want survival. Vincent leaned back in his chair. But this isn't my choice, Evelyn. It's yours. Is it? She met his eyes. You've already decided, haven't you? You always do. For a moment, something flickered across his face, surprise, maybe, or recognition that his daughter knew him better than he'd realized. I have an opinion, he admitted. But you're the one who was attacked. You're the one who has to live with whatever decision we make. So tell me, what do you want? Evelyn picked up Derek's folder, opened it slowly. Inside were photos, him in county jail, thinner, exhausted, the arrogance stripped away. A handwritten letter, his writing shaky. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I destroyed everything. But please, for Lily, let me have a chance to become someone worth knowing. I'll spend every day proving I'm sorry. She read it twice, felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no lingering love, just a hollow space where a marriage used to be. He paid someone to humiliate me while I was in labor, she said, voice flat. While I was bringing his child into the world, he was texting another woman to make sure I knew I wasn't enough. Vincent waited. Vanessa put her hands on me. Slapped me. Made me think I was dying, that my baby was dying, all for $20,000 and a man who wasn't worth it. She closed the folder, pushed it back across the desk. No deal. Not for him. Not for her. Vincent's expression didn't change, but she saw the approval in his eyes, not because she'd chosen cruelty, but because she'd chosen strength. And if they beg, he asked. If they appeal to your compassion, to Lily's need for a father? Evelyn's laugh was bitter, sharp. Lily doesn't need a father who traded her safety for cash. She needs a mother who won't teach her that cruelty deserves second chances. She looked at her sleeping daughter, then back at Vincent. They made their choices. They can live with the consequences. Vincent nodded once, picked up his phone, typed a message. Deny both plea offers. Full prosecution. No negotiations. He set the phone down, studied his daughter, this woman who'd survived betrayal, violence, conspiracy, and come out harder, clearer, unbroken. Your mother would be proud of you. Evelyn's throat tightened. Would she? Or would she say I'm being vindictive? She'd say you're being smart. Vincent stood, walked around the desk, sat beside her. Mercy isn't weakness, but it's not mandatory either. Some people earn forgiveness. Others just want to escape consequences. He paused. Derek and Vanessa want escape. Don't give it to them. Evelyn nodded, feeling the weight settle, not guilt, but finality. This was over. The choice was made. But then Vincent's phone buzzed, his lawyer, urgent. He answered, listened, his jaw tightening. When? A pause. I'll handle it. He hung up, looked at Evelyn. Gregory Hunt's trying one more move. He's offering testimony against a dozen other defense contractors, full cooperation, if we back off and let him plead down to white-collar charges instead of conspiracy. He threatened you through me, Evelyn said slowly. He's the reason any of this happened. He is. And he thinks he can buy his way out. He does. Evelyn stood, walked to the window overlooking the estate, Lily's soft breathing the only sound. She thought about the slap, the fear, the months of gaslighting, the attack that could have killed her daughter, all orchestrated by a man who'd never even met her, who saw her only as leverage, as a tool, as something expendable. She turned back to her father. Tell him no. Tell him we'll see him in court. And tell him, she paused, something cold and final settling in her chest. Tell him my father taught me that power isn't who strikes first. It's who refuses to back down. Vincent's smile was rare, genuine, proud. I'll tell him exactly that. He made the call, delivered the message, and somewhere in a federal holding cell, Gregory Hunt realized he'd miscalculated badly. There would be no deals. No mercy. No escape. Just consequences, relentless and absolute. Evelyn picked up Lily, held her close, and whispered, no one hurts us and walks away. Not anymore. And in that moment, she stopped being a victim. She became a Carter. She became a Carter. 6 months later, the trials were over, the verdicts delivered, the consequences permanent. Derek, 12 years, federal prison, no parole eligibility for 8. Vanessa, 8 years, state prison, permanent restraining order. Gregory Hunt, 18 years, asset forfeiture totaling $2.3 billion, his name now a case study in corporate corruption. Dr. Raymond Moss, medical license permanently revoked, 2 years suspended sentence, career destroyed. Diane, no criminal charges, but something worse, complete erasure from the family she'd tried to manipulate, her name removed from every document, every trust, every photograph on Vincent's walls. The internet had moved on to newer scandals, but the story remained, a cautionary tale, a viral moment that became a movement, millions of women finding their voice through Evelyn's survival. And Evelyn? She stood in a courthouse conference room, her victim impact statement printed on crisp paper, her hands steady, her daughter with her father in the gallery behind bulletproof glass. The judge had asked if she wanted to speak before sentencing. She'd said yes. Now, facing the court, facing the cameras that would broadcast this moment across every platform, facing the people who'd tried to break her, Evelyn cleared her throat and began. 6 months ago, I thought I was alone. Her voice was calm, Clear, the kind of steady that comes from surviving fire. I thought my husband's coldness was my fault, that my stepmother's advice was love, that the hospital would protect me, that the world was supposed to be safe during the most vulnerable moment of my life. She paused, looked directly at Derek in his orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed, eyes downcast. You taught me I was wrong. Not because you were cruel, cruelty I could have understood. But because you were calculated. You sold my safety, my dignity, my child's first moments, for money and convenience. You turned my labor into a transaction. Derek flinched but didn't look up. She turned to the judge. People keep asking me if I forgive them. If I think they've suffered enough. If I believe in second chances. She shook her head slowly. I believe in consequences. I believe that some choices are so devastating, so deliberate, that mercy becomes complicity. Her voice softened, but the steel underneath remained. I also believe in survival. In the 6 months since the attack, I've launched a foundation for abused mothers, funded by the hospital settlement, designed to provide legal aid, housing, and protection for women who think they are alone. She smiled slightly. We've helped 214 women so far. That number grows every week. She looked back at Derek one last time. You wanted to break me. Instead, you built something you'll never understand. A mother who refuses to teach her daughter that cruelty is acceptable, a woman who learned that power isn't volume, it's resolve, and a Carter who will never, ever be anyone's victim again. She folded the paper, stepped back. The courtroom was silent. Then the judge spoke, voice firm, sentencing will reflect the full weight of these crimes. No reductions. No leniency. These defendants showed no mercy, this court will show none in return. The gavel fell. It was over. 3 weeks later, Evelyn sat in her father's garden, Lily on a blanket beside her, reaching for dandelions with chubby hands, laughing at nothing and everything the way only babies can. Vincent appeared with coffee, sat beside her without speaking, just watching his granddaughter discover the world. She looks like her grandmother, he said finally. She does. Evelyn smiled, traced Lily's cheek with one finger. Strong. Stubborn. Beautiful. Sounds like someone else I know. Evelyn glanced at him, this man who'd crossed oceans to save her, who'd dismantled a conspiracy with surgical precision, who taught her that love sometimes looked like war. Thank you, she said softly. For coming home. For staying. For everything. Vincent's hand found hers, squeezed once. I should have been here sooner. Should have seen what was happening. You can't protect me from everything, Dad. I can try. His voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. Your mother made me promise, the night before she died, she said don't let the world make her small. I failed that promise for too long. You didn't fail. Evelyn leaned her head on his shoulder. You just forgot that being there is sometimes more powerful than being right. They sat in silence, the kind that didn't need filling, watching Lily grab at sunlight and grass and life. What's next? Vincent asked. Evelyn considered, not the foundation, not the media requests, not the book deals or the documentary offers or the speaking engagements that kept flooding in. Just the quiet question underneath, who am I now? I'm going to be Lily's mother, she said simply. I'm going to build something good from something terrible. And I'm going to teach her that kindness isn't weakness, but neither is strength. Vincent nodded, approval in his silence. Lily giggled, rolled onto her back, reached for Evelyn with tiny, trusting hands. Evelyn picked her up, held her close, breathed in that baby smell, milk and innocence and possibility. You're safe, she whispered against Lily's soft hair. You're loved. And you're never going to wonder if your mother will fight for you. Lily cooed, grabbed a handful of Evelyn's hair, yanked. Evelyn laughed, a real laugh, unguarded, free. Vincent watched them, his daughter and his granddaughter, and something in his chest loosened, some knot of fear and guilt he'd carried since his wife died finally unraveling. They were okay. More than okay. They were whole. The war was over. Justice had been served. And the Carter family, bruised, tested, but unbroken, had survived. Not because they were perfect, but because when it mattered most, they chose each other. So tell me, when life tries to break you, what's the one thing that keeps you standing? Drop it below. Your story matters too.